What?
We are talking Brooklyn 45, and this takes place, well, in Brooklyn in 1945. So you kind of get where the title is with this one. So yes, this is a kind of, you know, I struggle to call this an actual horror movie because there's very little horror elements in it, but it does fall under that banner because it is supernatural stuff, and there is a couple of gore scenes, but it's essentially a kind of one location movie, and it focuses just after World War II. So the Nazis have been defeated, and we have a collection of war veterans. These are all high-ranking war veterans, all of which have been friends for many years, and they go around one of their houses. Because this particular guy who's hosting this kind of meeting, his wife has committed suicide a short time ago, and he isn't, you know, he's not feeling particularly good about it, you might say. So he gathers this kind of group of, small group of kind of friends, all of whom have different kind of like roles within this military. And he wants them to try and do a kind of seance to contact his dead wife, and they're kind of initially reluctant. He kind of talks him into it, and they do, and they seemingly do contact the other side, but then things start to go really wrong, and it starts to kind of have a snowball effect where secrets are revealed, characters kind of show their true colours, various different kind of you know, things happen within the movie, plot twists, other characters are introduced, and they go so on and so forth. So that's your kind of your basic setup. So let's talk about it. What do I think works? So this is clearly a character-driven movie, and that is going to live or die on the writing and the acting. So how does that do? Now, you could say this is kind of like almost a Tarantino-esque kind of style movie in some ways, because it does have a lot of his kind of stylings. It certainly feels like it's, you know, it's not got the kind of the hyper-violence, the swearing and that kind of stuff, but there's definitely a Tarantino-esque kind of vibe to it. I do think this movie does benefit from having some good acting from our kind of relatively kind of small cast, but they all do a pretty good job, and it feels like the time. And I have to say, the movie's well cast because, you know, you've got a colonel, we've got this kind of like interrogator. We've got this kind of guy, like a bureaucrat guy. They all, I think, do a great job. They kind of look the part, the costumes are kind of authentic and things like this. And I have to say the acting, the performances all seem very good from our entire cast. And the writing, it's not quite to a Tarantino level, but it has that kind of like that back and forth. And as they say, as the film progresses, kind of, you know, allegiances are tested and the things are revealed, and you know, alliances kind of shift. So it does have that kind of, you know, fairly kind of good writing where we have these kind of character turns, and, you know, the situation causes kind of, you know, escalation and things like this. So I actually thought the writing was pretty strong here. The effects are minimal, if we're being honest. But there are a couple of reasonable kind of gore shots. There's one death scene, for example, which I think the effects look pretty strong. And it's a kind of a World War II Nazi movie that you haven't really seen before. So it definitely has a kind of freshness, to be honest with you. You know, there's been seance movies, but it incorporates a lot of the kind of like the post-World War II elements, and it is really about the, you know, how it affects people, and kind of it's looking at that kind of that psychological effect that war might have on people, but looking at it through a kind of a period lens, which I found was quite a kind of you know, a fascinating kind of concept. So let's talk about what doesn't work. This to me feels like a stage play, really, more than a film, or it should be a stage play. It's not big in scope. It is literally one room. We get a little bit of an outside, you know, scene at the beginning, but that's it. It's one room. So if you're looking for a variety, if you're looking for, you know, lots kind of going on, this isn't the movie for you. And although obviously it's clearly by design, I do feel the movie does suffer from having a very kind of like static location. You never really feel like you're seeing much more of the outside world, or this kind of like the 1945 kind of aesthetic, probably for budget reasons. But you know, it is very, very self-contained, and as such, visually speaking, it's not all that interesting. And that has to be said about these kind of ghostly effects, which I gotta be honest with you, considering there's so few effects in this movie, the first kind of overt thing is you'll see like this ghostly kind of hand sort of come out the table. But you look at the actors in this sequence, and they're clearly, obviously there's nothing there when they're actually shooting the actors. They're all looking in kind of different directions. No, the direction there doesn't seem to have been particularly kind of strong. They haven't really had anything to kind of look at because everyone just seems to be looking into space basically. So the effects are minimal, and when we do see them, I don't think they're particularly kind of well handled. And I have to say, as the film goes on, this movie asks more questions, or leaves more questions than it answers, certainly about the kind of the ghostly stuff that is going on. This may have been a choice, you know, by design, because it doesn't answer all the questions, far from it. But I feel, you know, you have more questions coming out of this movie than you did kind of going in. And I feel like it should have had a little bit more, you know, definite what happened really, and who was kind of maybe in the right. But it is all left up to you at the end of the day, which I don't know will be immediately kind of satisfying. Now, this movie is going to be forever because, as I say, it is all one kind of location, and ultimately it's people in the room arguing for more or less the entire length of the movie. And for some, that's going to be about as exciting as it sounds. Yes, I did quite like the writing. There are kind of certain reveals which I found quite interesting, and I did like the characters and the acting. But, you know, truth be told, you know, it is just one location with a set group of characters. It very much feels like a stage play, and it arguably, you know, isn't the most thrilling of movies. It's well done for what it is, but I gotta say, it's not gonna kind of like be a thriller-minute ride for anyone, I don't think. I suspect this might play well to kind of older people who like a kind of like a, you know, a stage plays and things like that. But I got to be honest with you, I think it could have had a bit more visual finesse. I think it doesn't help that it's all in one location. I know that's the whole point of this movie, but it does feel quite stale. I mean, I wouldn't say it was dull, but it feels a little stale. But there it is. I mean, the movie's clearly designed to be what it is. It's not trying to be. It's like this by design, is what I'm trying to say. So you either like that kind of movie or you don't. But I gotta say, I still think it's an above average movie. I think for the acting, and I think the character work here. And, you know, even though it might not be particularly dynamic, there is a lot of kind of things that are revealed about these kind of characters and their kind of past and their kind of relationship with one another. Yeah, it's a lot of talking and kind of like telling, not showing, which is why I'm not going to give it a super high mark. But I do feel it's kind of like does rise above an average kind of movie for this sort of type. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.